Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar. My name is Martin Wishart and I'm the Global Product Sales Manager here at Kyloe. Today we're presenting this webinar about how you can get the most out of your connected recruitment strategy and how to effectively communicate with candidates at every stage of the talent lifecycle. And the key to making this a success is to ensure you have a database that can support your strategy. Personalisation and automation offer two of the biggest opportunities in the market. But data quality, duplicates, missing information, and old data can sabotage your success. Today, our panelists will be sharing some tips with you on how to ensure your database how to help maximize and return that strategy by keeping your database clean and tidy. Now, before we get into any content, we'll do a quick round of introductions to the panelists. And Kelly, would you like to go first for us, please?
Sure. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining our webinar today. My name is Kelly Shudrup. I'm the Vice President of Sales for Parka, which is a performance marketing agency. My personal background is about 15 years, all in marketing, marcom, PR, branding, digital, the works. But the last 11 years, I've focused specifically on the staffing space. And I'll share more at the end about how Parka jumps in and helps staffing firms grow. But in a nutshell, we evaluate your tech, your marketing, and your operations to determine how to make things drive forward together and accomplish your business results. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Kelly. Lee, you fall next in the camera row for me.
Thanks, Martin. My name is Lee Clark. I'm a senior solution consultant at Bullhorn. My role at Bullhorn is to provide product and technical expertise through the sales process, working with new and existing customers on the Bullhorn platform. I've worked in the kind of recruitment technology space for about 8 or 9 years, including a long stint with Kyloe Partners. So it's good to be back with the Kyloe team on this webinar. Prior to that, I worked for a few years in recruitment myself. So really nice to have the opportunity to speak to you today about this, and thanks for having me.
Leaves you, Mr. Sykes.
Thanks, Martin. My name's Matthew Sykes. I work for a agency, Yoke Recruitment, obviously based in the UK, covering a wide range of areas. I'm head of L&D for Yoke. I am responsible, obviously, for training our staff up, but also making sure we get the most out of our database and our technology platforms as well. I've been in the recruitment space for about 20 years now, so know a little bit about some of the pitfalls that that can entail.
Thank you very much, everyone. And Lee.
Great. So I thought before we get started, as a representative here from Bullhorn, it'd be good just to give you a bit of an overview of what we mean by connected recruiting. So when we speak about connected recruiting, it's a methodology that empowers recruitment firms to engage talent at every stage of what we call the talent lifecycle. And this is using kind of a combination of business strategy and technology. So it's not just about kind of technology products, but using modern digital marketing best practice. So it's all about automation, messaging, and also things like self-service portals or anything like that as well. So more specifically, we talk about 4 stages of the talent lifecycle, which is the attract stage, the engage stage, the onboarding stage, and then the nurturing. And what that really means is, if I could think about some kind of specific examples, it can be things like quicker initial follow-ups with a candidate. It can be automated engagement, both initially as you're speaking to them, but also as they're preparing to start their placement or if they're starting to get onboarded. It can be automating the onboarding processes in terms of kind of getting documentation, key information from them. But crucially, then engaging a talent pool going forward, which can be really helpful for things like redeployment or going to your engaged talent pool when you get new requirements rather than external sources. So what's the impact of implementing this methodology? Well, we want to see things like incredible candidate experience, better experience for your candidates through the whole process of dealing with you as an agency, but also things like better response rates when you reach out to people, much higher redeployment, so you're not losing good compliant contractors to your competitors at the end of their contract, and with that a lower cost of acquisition and a much higher return on investment with an engaged talent pool, meaning that you'll spend less time going to external sources, job boards, etc., and more time actually engaging with the talent pool you already have in your database.
Thank you very much, Lee. Well, that puts us straight into it. And we're going to start off at the start of the life cycle with Attract. We'll keep this section of the webinar relatively high level. There was a very good webinar done earlier this year, I believe around June time, which spent a lot of time focusing on this. But in our earlier conversations, Matt had some great points I'd like to kind of ask him to speak about on some of the origins of the duplicates en route into the system through this phase. So Matt, would you like to talk to that, please?
Yeah, and it's such, I think, a candidate short market at the moment, more than ever. We're trying to drive new people into our database. And they're coming from, we've got many integrations set up with LinkedIn, with job boards using aggregators, as well as consultants, obviously adding, candidates in manually. And for various reasons, we're finding that, a lot of duplicates were getting added to our system, whether that was just human error or a change in data. People change email addresses, people change home address, people change phone number, people even change names. We were finding that was leading to, say, a large number of duplications of candidates, in our Bullhorn.
Yeah, it's interesting. The change of names an interesting one too. If you think of people getting married and they'll be coming into the system as the same person with a different last name, perhaps, but still getting in there all the same. It's an important thing to keep an eye on.
Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah. Well, as I say, we'll keep that section brief and we'll move on to engage. So we've gone to this attracting these people in, we've got them into your database. Now we've got to get them ready for personalization. And of course, personalization through automation and reaching out to them. But again, Matthew, I'd like to kind of touch on you to explain a little bit about your experience with the duplicates, how you've actually identified those and some of the struggles you've had and what your plan is to fix them.
Yeah, so I think initially it was very hard for us to identify those, and we found there was various problems with that. Even at a simple level, we could be emailing, the same person multiple times because there's multiple records in our database, which isn't a great experience if, we're trying to send them information about jobs and they get the same email twice within a couple of minutes. Not a good look. But also it's about making data more accessible to our consultants as well. Candidates are sitting with missing data, no phone numbers, no emails. Bigger than that we found because of the way Bullhorn does location searching was postcodes. Candidates had been added to our system without a postcode or a full postcode, weren't getting picked up in consultant searches because of the way they were searching locations as well. I think we found a number of issues around that. And certainly, we've been using Kyloe's DataTools product. Certainly with duplicates, it's made it fantastically easy for us to identify those duplicates. I think, we instantly identified, scarily, I think over 1,200 duplicates in our database. And actually, it's just allowed us to clean up that data as well. Again, and then the same tool, identifying these records with missing data and those that we could quickly target to try and get that data added. So definitely for us, I think it's still fairly early in the journey for us. I think we've not been using the product long, but it's been a real help so far in identifying that missing information and starting to clean our database up.
Brilliant. And Kelly, as I kind of mentioned at the beginning here, also a large part of this is personalization when you're engaging with people. You spoke a lot about the importance of this as well through when sending out automations.
Yes. If we take that step back and think about this stage, they've already come to you, right? So if that candidate is in your system, they have expressed interest in some way, and going way far back, it's always been this one-on-one, highly relational industry. But of course, once you start dealing with a true volume play, it becomes really difficult to have that. So that's where technology obviously steps in and supports immensely by making your recruiters more efficient and giving that better experience to candidates. But when you think about creating a good experience, it's really important to make sure that those automations, those emails they're getting, whatever touch point it is, still sounds human and is still one-to-one in nature. And so this actually gives you a really great opportunity to make your brand voice shine. And I know, just by spending years in marketing in this space, sometimes brand is looked at as yes, we need it, but it doesn't make money. But the reality is, if you've got a candidate who is applying for multiple roles, or you've gone out to find them and they're now in your system, and you send them something that's canned and automated and doesn't feel human, it doesn't resonate with your voice, it may not stand out from the crowd. Candidates, it's such a candidate-driven market, and they can choose from a lot of options right now. So taking the time to craft those messages in a way that feel more personal is going to help you get that leading edge on whether they choose to use you or someone else, especially if you're approaching them with the same opportunity as the next staffing firm down the road. So really good opportunity to differentiate yourself and create a great experience.
Actually speaking to someone just yesterday, actually, on in relation to this, since it's actually on with the personalization, not just referring to them as Martin or Kelly, but what is their preferred name? So in a kind of legal sense, you're working with them through documentation that Martin and Kelly is your name, but perhaps you prefer to be called Kel or Marty, and they were talking about putting that into the Bullhorn environment, so that when they're sending these automations out, it was personalized to them, but then through other areas of the business, they were speaking to them through the legal sense as well. So yeah, we'll move on from there. Some great stuff from Kelly, and into Onboard, where I think Lee has quite a lot of points to raise here for us.
Yeah, well, I think it's a continuation really on what Kelly and Matt were just saying, really, in terms of we're in a candidate-driven market, and it's having that good experience from a candidate perspective, making sure your branding is really strong, that you stand out from your competitors. I mean, I think where we've seen clients do really well in this area is around kind of engaging candidates through those key days in the lead up to their first day, avoiding things like no-shows, leaving the candidate with a kind of warm, fuzzy feeling. So making sure that your talent satisfaction remains, making sure your messaging isn't canned, like Kelly just said, even when the deal is maybe at its final stages and done. So with like a permanent placement, I think that's particularly good to make the candidate still feel valued, even as you're helping them with the process of changing jobs. And then also making sure that they're ready for work from a kind of compliance documentation stage, so we don't have any instance where you maybe have to delay a start date. So I suppose to look at the kind of central question of today's webinar, like how do you get ready for that? How do you make that successful? I think there's a real importance of data quality to run these successful automations. We, for example, might need to know what we need to get from them. We might want to be using things like credentialing to understand what credentials we might have previously got that have expired, what might be necessary to obtain before they start with a particular client or a particular industry. I think it's really important through all of this to have good contact data, accurate statuses, so you know where someone is, clean and well adopted system processes, so easy to use system processes. That means that it works, and when you get to this stage you can use automation in the right way, and your placement data needs to be accurate. But we've previously spoken about this, and I think it's a good opportunity to use tools, whether it's automation, whether it's data tools, whether it's onboarding tools, to confirm or capture the data at this time. Almost use this as a last opportunity to say, is everything correct, before we move you to the formal process of getting you ready to work at our client site. And things like confirming a profile, confirming those key names, legal names, preferred names at that stage. But it's also a good opportunity to capture information, things like NPS, ask for feedback, show that you're engaged, show that you care, but also at that stage, use that to then improve your processes, improve that talent experience down the line.
Well, and I think you touched on something there, Lee, credentialings or certifications, as I sometimes hear it called in the UK. I think it's an area of Bullhorn that's often underused, I feel, certainly, giving that ability in the front end to store those credentials and certificates that are required for the candidate to actually go to work, or required for them to be submitted to a role, or actually be placed at a certain client. We've got within our DataTools product that Matt and Lee have touched on, we've seen a lot of clients using that to actually automate the insertion of the credential requirements into Bullhorn, so that as candidates are actually entering your database right away through the attract phase, we can initiate an automation to tell the candidate record that you need to have this and this credential before you can be considered to work for us. And then likewise through the job record as well into the placement, we can automate that for them. So it's really added value there and taking away a ton of manual process from that side as well. And Matthew, anything else to add there about the onboarding process from your side?
Sorry, I was on mute. I think the only bit for me to add there was just, I think, to confirm what we brought up before, about the importance of data quality. So we run a lot of automations, I think a combination of using, Bullhorn's onboarding tool, using automation products, from Kyloe, to automate a lot of our compliance and our contracts process around our temps and contractors, And if you're going to automate like that, you've got to be confident in the quality of your data. Because if that's not right and you're making errors in contracts going out, well, that's going to cause you huge issues. So I think getting that data quality right is absolutely key.
It certainly is. You've got to think about the onboarding at both sides of the process, to candidate end, but also then actually getting them onboarded to go out to work as well. Very important. And I think with that, since there was in burning to say, we'll move on to nurture. And Kelly, I think we'll throw you straight into the hot seat here. This is right up your street.
Yes, I'm very passionate about this topic. Kind of like I mentioned before, so much of technology and marketing comes down to making what you would already do in a best practice scenario automated and more efficient, right? So if you think about one of the best ways that you can nurture individuals, it's to take some of your best recruiters' activities and automate them, but also think about it through the lens of where is that potential, or that current consultant, and what is your specialization? Because this is going to look really different if you focus on healthcare or professional or light industrial, for example, right? So just taking that time to think about where are they at from a profession standpoint, but also where are they at in their stage? When we talk about nurturing, sometimes we think about, all right, we've got a candidate who's currently on deployment, so they are a consultant. Well, we can nurture them throughout that process. But then we've got alumni too. So someone who you've placed in the past, who you would love to place again, maybe they're on contract with someone else. Maybe they were rolled into a perm opportunity and they're not ready for another consulting gig, right? There's all kinds of scenarios, but it's important to understand where they're at in that stage and what is important to them.
And Kelly, how does a company even start doing this? Where do you begin?
Yeah, it's kind of one of those loaded questions. In the last few years, our industry has really started to adopt technology and automation much more heavily. For example, Herefish, which was acquired by Bullhorn and is now Bullhorn Automation. Here at Parka, we work with a lot of Bullhorn customers. And so it's one of those pieces where oftentimes people say, all right, I've got automation, I've got the basic workflow set up, but now what? I'm not sure if it's really working to its full extent. And there's really a few ways to look at this. I'll start with one as just a best practice, and then another one I'll go into a few examples, just so people can kind of hear use cases for where this can be really beneficial. One is that how to lay the foundation is really to say, all right, what are my best recruiters doing today, and how do I make that more automated? So there is a healthcare consulting firm, HR consulting firm. I've got another example with a healthcare one down the road, but there's an HR consulting firm who has a recruiter who's just consistently got, 25 or more consultants in the field. And I understand like that is a big number for some types of industries and a really small number for others. So for their space, it was really healthy. And the other recruiters on the team were trying to do the same, but what they were finding is that they were just getting burned out. Because without spending way more time on the weekends and in evenings when they'd love to be spending time with their family, they couldn't increase their numbers. They kind of hit that threshold just based on the amount of time they had in a day to reach out to new candidates, to onboard them, to nurture them, all the pieces. And so what we did is we sat down with that top recruiter and said, all right, tell us your process. We're going to make recommendations, and we automated it. And over the course of time, she literally doubled the amount of consultants she had in the field. And the rest of the team went on average from 25 consultants to 40 consultants, truly because they had their work automated. And that's great for a few reasons, to right out of the gate being it creates a really great candidate experience, because now you're not just kind of left to when the recruiter has time to follow up. Right? Like if anybody here has grown up in the recruiting space, and I've spent time as a recruiter back in my career, there's only so much time. So it increases that experience for the candidate, but it also increases the stickiness to your recruiters, because if that recruiter or anyone on that team starts getting recruited away to a different staffing firm that does not have a tech stack and a marketing strategy that's enabling them to make twice the amount of money, I can't imagine that they're going to be interested in making that move. And then just a few other examples. We have seen companies from small to really large who have implemented automation, who kind of did the set it and forget it mentality. So, NPS scores were mentioned a few minutes ago, and just the importance of touching base with your consultants when they're out in the field. How are they experiencing that opportunity? And it is so common to jump in and see a workflow has been set up. So it might be easy to kind of check the box. Great, it's good to go. But as an example, if you go in and you look at that workflow and every 30 or 60 days, you've got the exact same message, how are you doing? Rank it on a scale of 1 to 10. And no matter what that consultant answers, they're still in the same workflow. Well, that's not what a recruiter would do, right? Going back to that personalization, a recruiter would say, man, they clicked 2. I need to get on a call right now and figure out what's going on. Or, oh my gosh, they clicked 10. Right now is the opportunity for me to ask them for referrals for other people in their network who would love to have an opportunity like this. And so having those types of smart responses built into your automation can make the world of difference for ROI, which I know everybody wants at the end of the day when you're investing technology. And then just another example, we've seen automations where someone has put it into place and it is a wall of text. There's no call to action. The language is a little bit stuffy. It just goes right back to what would your best recruiter do and how do you automate it? And then as a final example in this space, and I'm happy to answer questions as we get into that section or reach out to me on LinkedIn. There was a company, healthcare staffing firm, quite sizable, that had literally 100,000 candidates that were inactive in their database. Now, you may be listening to this and you're like, wow, that is a lot. And maybe you have 10,000, but maybe you are one of the staffing firms that have significantly more and you don't even want to think about it or look at it because you're paying for top of the funnel to get more candidates in every day. What we did for them is we set up a series of nurturing automations. And over the course of 11 months, they had 2,100 placements, which based on the rate that they get, the fee that they get for each of those, it was $60 million value of revenue that they saw that they would not have had if they hadn't activated these nurturing campaigns. And it's just that example that there can be significant ROI. And that is, if you guys want to have conversations offline, that's really where Parka supports. It's not just jumping into the details. It's saying, what are those business objectives? What are you trying to accomplish? What are you doing with your tech, your marketing, and your data? Putting together a plan to help you execute, and then supporting you or your team with everything related to marketing communications, marketing technology, implementation of workflows, and then measurement and determining what's working. So long-winded, very passionate about this area, Martin. Hope those examples are helpful to people.
Those are some fantastic examples, and I'm glad you ended with the healthcare one because I was going to call you back to that if you'd forgotten. But no, it's a fantastic example. And just before we move on, I do want to bring Matthew in and see if he was able to talk a little bit about what he's done in relation to, I guess, making it easier for his team to find candidates based on files. And I think more specifically, it was resumes or CVs.
Yeah, so we've just been looking at anything that makes consultants' lives easier, makes it easier to access people, on our own database. And one of the things we've done is anyone that does use Bullhorn, as great a system as it is, one of the things we've always struggled with is, being able to search on files and being able to search files by date added, to really understand from our perspective, when was the last time we had an updated CV from a candidate? How recent is that information? And so one thing we've managed to do using the DataTools software is actually create a field that gives us a categorization on when we last had a CV from that individual. And that's allowing consultants to spend their time looking at recently active candidates, people that we've had, recent updates from, the same as you would on a job board, to hone in on the people that are going to be most suitable, most relevant, and their details are up to date, which is just allowing them to be more productive and more effective with what they're doing. So yeah, that's been, I think, a really good one for us.
Yes, it's a really quite simple but great way to help your team easily find active people in the market right now in a specific location as well, if you've got all your data up to date from the previous work you've done.
Yeah, and it's all automated for us. I think the beauty of it is that we're not relying on consultants to update statuses or update fields. It's a script that runs overnight every night and just happens automatically. And we know when that's the case, that's what consultants enjoy the most. If it's less work for them and it's just happening behind the scenes, everybody's happy.
Fantastic. Well, thanks everyone for all the fantastic comments and words throughout the stages. But I wanted to, before we move on and go into questions and other things, I wanted to just talk about some, I guess, 5 takeaways from today, which we can actually take away as action points perhaps and start, initiating into your business today. Nothing too massive, but just small snippets that will help you. So point 1 we want to touch on is, quite clearly, a clean database is key for successful engagement, onboarding, nurturing, and any automation underpinning these. Point 2, duplicates can come from various sources. Merge them to improve candidate experience. Duplicates will cause you massive issues. It's hard to identify them. So let's work on that and merge those records. Let's not be shy. Let's not be holding on to data records we don't need anymore. Number 3, missing data is as bad as dirty data. Things like emails, phone numbers, missing files such as CVs, resumes are essential. So again, let's make sure we're staying on top of that. We're not just letting people perhaps just parse the resume in and walk away. Do we initiate an extra couple of minutes per parser, per resume parsed in to make sure that data is up to date? Or are we having automations handle that for us? Point 4, there are lots of opportunities hiding within your existing database. Consider how different workflows are suitable for different segments and make it feel personal. Kelly will love that one, I'm sure. It's making it personal to the person is going to be very important. I know that I much prefer that too when I receive email content, having it directed to me rather than it feeling like it coming from an automation. Really important in that piece.
I do love that, Martin. And it's so funny. It's like how many times have we each gotten an email where clearly the system has dated information and it's like, are you interested in this specialist role? And like, you haven't been in that kind of a role for the last, 12 years. There's a lot of, it can go a long way to have personalized approach, updated data.
We had think of a time for a story, short one. A funny email came into one of our team here at Kyloe. It had been kind of 3 or 4 emails had gone by, no one had replied, and then this GIF of a dog just appeared on the screen. That was the last email they chose to see if they were interested. So it was quite a different approach, but it was one that caught the eye. Maybe that's not the best approach for everyone, but it was it was quite funny, I thought. Thinking outside the box a bit. And then point 5, final takeaway for everyone is, you don't know where to begin? Talk to your best recruiters about their ideal process as a starting point. Go to your team. They're doing this today probably already, struggling through it perhaps. So let's get speaking to them and see if we can automate and help them get better at what they're doing. So Lee, moves on to you.
Yeah, thanks, Martin. So we've spoken a lot today about Bullhorn's connected recruiting methodology. So if you want to know more about that, if you'd want more information, you can go to the link on the slide there, bullhorn.com/connected-recruiting. That site will give you more information. It will help you with where to start. It does include some automations that you can begin to deploy. In addition, obviously, to the tips and advice that's been shared on this this webinar. In addition, if you want to find out more, speak to someone, you can reach out to your account manager, or if you don't know who that is, or you can obviously reach out to myself as well, and I can help kind of direct you in the right place. So hopefully that's all clear, but lots of information on that site there if you want to find out a bit more about Bullhorn's connected recruiting methodology.
And I know we're stepping into Q&A here shortly, but even just while Martin takes on the next slide, I'd love to see in the Q&A or the chat how people would rate themselves in this connected recruiting methodology on a scale of 1 to 10. And I know it's a new word that has been introduced, but just the concept of automating processes and taking people through that attract, engage, onboarding, nurture is best practice and has been for quite some time. So I just love to see that. If you are hearing, you're hearing that on a scale of 1 to 10, just as a self-check.
Well, someone's gone straight in with a 7. Good, great to see it. While some numbers are flowing in, I'll just talk to this piece. So we've obviously spoken on the importance of your Bullhorn CRM data. It truly sits at the heart of your business, and it's often inconsistent. It prevents your business and your consultants from getting the best out of the market. So a successful connected recruitment methodology starts in your Bullhorn system, and duplicates, missing information, old data can really sabotage all the efforts. So that's why we've created Kyloe DataTools, our data management product with Bullhorn users in mind. It really is the most powerful product of its kind on the market, giving you the ability to identify those records with missing information. Don't they have files? There's also the duplicate part, which is spoken about with Matt's been using. It will identify the duplicates you have, not only across your candidates, but across your contacts and companies if you want, and give you the power to merge those. You can push a button and merge 1,000 at a time, or that can sit there on a schedule behind you and just automatically keep your database tidy as those candidates are coming in, if they are still finding a way in, and creating duplicates for you. And we then, of course, have that rules engine, data rules, which is the product that Matt, again, is actually using for creating that little automation to update the CV field for his recruiters to help them find those candidates as well. So likewise, if you have any questions, you don't know where to start, you can reach out to myself directly. You can find me on LinkedIn, on the Kyloe website. You can talk to a little chat bot on there as well if you want. Or of course, just go to our website and find out more about Kyloe DataTools. And we've made it. All the way down to
a question, Martin. Do you mind if I jump in and answer it?
Go for it.
Awesome. It looks like there's a question around any thoughts on how to get buy-in from executives on connected recruiting, changing their thinking from the old way to the new way. I would say one way, without it being a super expensive process right out of the gate or just very timely, is just sit down and write what your current process is today to attract, to engage, to onboard, and to nurture candidates. And even if you literally just like block yourself out of your emails for an hour and whiteboard it out, start identifying the areas that you can automate. So what is your team doing? What are you doing today that doesn't need to be fully manual? Because the next time your company is looking to level up and scale and keep growing, which is typically a continuous process, instead of hiring another recruiter for fill in the blank for that salary, you can look at, can we do a one-time investment to automate it, to utilize Bullhorn or Kyloe or Parka or fill in the blank with a partner that can do it one time and then it's evergreen. So I would say that would be an initial step. Obviously, there's a lot of things we can dialogue offline, but curious to hear Matt, Lee, and Martin's thoughts to that too, if you have anything else you want to add.
Yeah, I guess happy to weigh in, because obviously I've kind of been through that from our end in terms of getting buy-in from our board. I think it's obviously understanding what they feel are the challenges within the business. And for us, it was easy to identify things like, our compliance and how much time that was eating up from, not just our consultants, but our back office teams as well. It was looking at the market and our expenditure, what we were spending on things like, LinkedIn Recruiter and job boards and tools to make that happen, when actually we had a database of 80,000 candidates, and how well were we utilizing that? So when you start to look at that kind of data and say, well, what if we could spend less here? Or what if we could make more placements, in total, because we were finding better people out of our own database? These are the long-term, aims that any executive in a business should have. They're in recruitment, but it's getting them to see how a connected recruitment strategy can lead to that. And it isn't an overnight thing. You're not going to buy one tool or, do one thing and it's going to change things completely. It does have to be. And I think that's where, I guess, I've been looking in terms of pushing this from a, Yoke perspective, that the board, I think, really bought into. They saw technology and how we're doing it as a way to enable this and improve our business, and they'd be committed to that journey. Because we've been doing this now we've been on Bullhorn for about 3 years, and we're still working to improve this. And in another 3 years, we won't be where we want to be. We'll still be finding something else that we can push further. And that's the other thing I think people have got to buy into.
Yeah, I'd echo. I think you both said it perfectly. It's all about the kind of return on investment and communicating the benefits of this and taking time over it. A really good example of that I think we speak about a lot is things like your redeployment rate. just look at that and think, do you know your current redeployment rate? Most people, when you ask them that question, they don't. And when they find it out, they're very disappointed with the number they get back. So that is a very good example immediately of saying, right, how do we use automation? How do we use connected recruiting to address that? And it's very, very easy for an executive there to see the benefit of that and how that will then make their lives easier, make more placements and save them a lot of time.
Right. Because if you were to increase or even just double your current redeployment rate or add it by a few percentage points, that's going to be a really quick return.
Yeah.
And to the person that asked that question too, we can certainly chat offline. Parka has an initial strategic discovery process that involves the executive team to say, what are those business objectives? Like Matt said, what are you doing today to accomplish those? And then determining the gaps. Putting together a measurement strategy to see what mechanisms can make changes to accomplishing those business goals, and then setting a plan together.
Brilliant. I think you guys have answered that very well. There is one other question in the Q&A chat, Lee. I don't know if you can see that as well. I guess maybe one
so
for you.
Yeah, to put me on the spot with some Bullhorn knowledge here. We don't use automation. We only really use name as personalization. Are there any quick wins how we can segment our database and we can be more targeted? Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think if you're at the position where you're not doing you're only, like you said, using name, and you don't have the automation tool. Obviously, having the automation tool gives you the ability to really start to kind of query and set your audience, but you can do this through list views and through search. It's very easy if you have any data in Bullhorn to start to segment your database, whether that's using a search just to get a bit of a sense of the unstructured data. But if you're using kind of candidate lists or contact lists, very easy to just take anything that you've got, filter on that, and then send out some kind of, at least initially, manual communication through the tool, through the Bullhorn tool, and see how it goes, right? Get a bit of sense of how that works. What have you got? What's the quality of your data? Have you been able to get an audience from that? What was the response when you sent it? And then that's almost like the first step in a process that can take you all the way to building multiple automations, firing out to lots of different audiences with very, very bespoke, personalized content. But yeah, if you've got data and you've got Bullhorn, you can immediately start to kind of get those quick wins and start to segment that database. And obviously, I will put that to some of our Bullhorn users, Matt, maybe to see if there's anything else they think on that.
Yeah, I'll reiterate what Lee shared. Oh, Matt, why don't you go ahead?
No, you first, Kelly, please.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I would just reiterate, like if you start to think about tools that are currently available to you, if you are a Bullhorn customer, checking out Bullhorn automation, there's a lot of great initial workflows that can be set up. I know we were in conversations just last week with the customer success team, and at Bullhorn, they're starting to have conversations with people to say, all right, what's already set up? Like where are major gaps that you could be implementing? Like, do you have a nurturing workflow? If you have consultants in the field, is there anything set up to touch base with them? Or are you just relying on your recruiters when they are, slammed with everything else to hopefully remember to follow up every few weeks or whatever that might look like? So yeah, I would just say kind of do like an internal assessment yourself of what are processes we would love to be doing in an ideal case scenario, and what can we automate? And I'm sure the folks at Bullhorn and at my team would be happy to just kind of connect some of those dots and give you some ideas.
Yeah, I guess just to add, I mean, look, there are so many tools that you can look at. Kyloe DataTools, Bullhorn's automation. We use Cube19 for reporting as well. But even within Bullhorn, what's there for free? There's so much that you can use if you think about how to get the best out of it. And the customer success team at Bullhorn are great, to pick the brains of as well. But one good example is things that I don't think are always that used, and Lee might back this up, but things like being able to search on, shortlist searching on Bullhorn, or advanced note searching. You can identify candidates that, first half of this year, they interviewed for us, or we put them forward to roles, but actually in the last 3 months, nobody's made contact with them, nobody's phoned them. And you can go as far as personalizing email, just referencing that data. If somebody gets an email that says, hi, name, you applied to a role through us, you went forward to a position with us earlier this year, we've not been in touch with you for a while, we wanted to update on your situation. You know, even little things like that can make a mass mail feel really tailored if you think about how you're selecting that data, how you're choosing it, but then using it to nurture candidates where you've interacted with them in, the recent past.
Thanks, everyone. We are about 1 minute over, but we had 2 or 3 minutes delay. I think I'm going to go for one more question. There's a few more in the chat. We'll make sure everyone's questions are answered afterwards. But there's one here I think it's quite good. First of all, saying thanks for the tips today, which is great. Thank you. And what is the main mistake you see when people clean up their data? I don't want to ruin it. And I guess one thing I would say right away is a mistake we see quite often by the time we get to a client and talk to them about maybe the solutions we can offer at Kyloe is that they've only ever done it once, or perhaps they've done nothing. The mistake is often leaving it and having that, maybe you've got that fear of, I don't want to ruin my data, I don't want to delete things, I don't want to remove things, but having 30,000 really great candidates in your database is far better than having 100,000 candidates where 70% of those are duplicates or have bad data or missing information. So I think that just take that step, be brave, get on your data, and don't worry about in ruining it. You can work with experts like Kyloe and Bullhorn and Parka and everyone else to help you with that. You're not alone in this road. Anyone got anything to add on that part?
I think it's a nice reassuring message to end with, Ryan. Very comfortable.
Yeah. Thank you, Lee. But yeah, you're not alone here, guys. We're all here to help. Any questions at all, you can reach out to us. But I think that is all we've got time for now. So hopefully everyone has picked up some tips today. Thank you for all the questions in the chat. And as I say, anything unanswered, we'll get those over to you. So yeah, it's great. Thanks everyone for joining. And thanks again to my panelist. And I must say a final thank you to someone who is hiding over here next to me that this wouldn't be able to be done without, and that is Amaya from our marketing team. So a massive thank you to her. She's the real star behind all of this.
Thanks for having us. And everybody connect with us on LinkedIn, reach out with questions. We nerd out about this stuff.
We do. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.